harsh reality that not everybody is a fan favorite also. You know, not everybody is the most popular person on a show, and not everybody can probably move product in that same way. That's kind of, I think,
So you think Amanda Francis is preying on the weakest of us with her book
I
and
mean,
digital
listen,
courses?
you said it,
Anyone
not me.
shilling digital courses?
Yeah, I think digital coursing is just like inherently suspect.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah. If she
We
wants
don't
to
wanna get
be
you in
the
hot
money
water.
queen
We don't
because of
wanna get you in
that,
hot
Yeah.
water.
self-proclaimed,
Hey, we'll be rich
go
as
for
fuck.
it.
Welcome back to the Side Projects podcast, the show where we are talking about what cultural relevance actually means and requires from people shaping media, art, and tech, and the Bravo-verse.
Let's get to it. Clara, one thing that our listeners and viewers now might not know is that I have a bit of a guilty pleasure, and it is not one extra scoop of ice cream before I go to bed.
I know.
Care to guess what it
Famous
is?
glutton.
You see this? You see this? It ain't easy.
It ain't easy. What is it, Eli?
Wow. Thank you for asking. My guilty pleasure, I am a big fan of The Real Housewives. The Real Housewives of New York, the OG cast, to be specific.
Very nice.
Those women had class.
They did. Who's
you
your
cannot
favorite?
buy class. Sonia Morgan.
Wow. I mean, that's a good pick.
Don't touch the fucking Morgan letters.
Wow.
That's one thing I learned.
You heard him, folks.
That's one thing I learned.
Well, we are going to be talking about all things Real Housewives and, you know, a little bit about the Real Housewives of New York OGs with Gibson Johns, who is the host of Gabbing with Gib. He's also a freelance writer. He has bylines in Esquire, E! News, and more. And we were really excited to have him on, not just as Bravo fans, as you mentioned, but I think that we're sort of in a moment where Bravo has become kind of a defining part of cultural monoculture, or of monoculture, to the extent that that still exists. I think we've seen it obviously recently with Summer House, but I think that like Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is sort of like a perennial, or whenever it is out, is sort of always sort of a driver of conversation and ice cooler or water cooler discourse. I think in general, like the success of like even the more recent entrants like Real Housewives of Rhode Island, Ladies of London, Next Gen NYC, which I know is another favorite of yours, is coming out for season 2. So I think like they've done a really good job of not only sort of like keeping all of their existing IP up to speed, but I think also like debuting new shows and new cast members and new talent in a way that is sort of like only continuing to like expand the tent.
Yeah. And why I also find a lot of this stuff interesting outside of just the captivating drama and narrative and spectacle and
It
cattiness.
almost sounds like you're being ironic.
No, I'm not. That's being, I know, hard to believe.
I know, but
hard
I'm
to
just saying,
is that
tell the listeners that you're not being ironic.
I feel like we are in this moment now more than ever when reality TV is kind of spilling into the real world. Obviously, you see it with our politics, where we have a reality TV president, where Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, was on Real World Road Rules, believe it or not, and just filmed his own reality TV show.
Yeah, with his family.
In office. Spencer Pratt is running for mayor of LA. And also, you know, we talk about this with Gibson too, is that Bravo and reality TV feels like one of the only things outside of sports that has like this really loyal, vocal fandom that I think mirrors sports. And as a matter of fact, Peacock has like a Sunday Night Football watch along, which is quite interesting. But then also what we talk about with Gibson a lot is the fact that, you know, these shows have kind of operated as incubators, both for like the brands that these cast members are starting, but also they become huge magnets for like reactive moments for brands too. So we talk a lot about that with Gibson as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of transferable lessons. And I kind of bungled my question, I feel like, about this to him. But like, I do think it's interesting now. There are so many people who start as creators, who start sort of like in one particular niche. Like I'm thinking about Jake Shane or sort of like Jordan Firstman in a more sort of like upscale context maybe, who start as comedians or social media stars that then want to parlay that experience into a new terrain. And I think that the ladies of Real Housewives and other franchises are like real OGs of that. And then we talk about Paige DeSorbo and sort of other people have sort of made the switch, quote unquote. But I think that reality TV like does give you a lot of transferable skills, but I think that like it does take a lot of talent to take your audience with you and take the parasocial relationship that you build in one place to another place. So with that, I think we will transition to the conversation about Bravo.
Only on Side Project.
Oh my God.
By all means.
Gibson, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We're so excited to have you on this very auspicious day.
It's a big week.
It's a big week. It's going to be a big 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because we are in the midst of the Summer House reunion season.
TV event of the
Playoffs.
year. Yes, exactly. It's all come down to
Playoffs.
this.
Yeah,
Seasons.
exactly.
Yeah, it's a big time.
It's a huge
Yeah,
time.
all
And
eyes.
all eyes on the clock. We have, just to kick us off, I was wondering if you could give us just like your very quick predictions for part 2, which will be coming out the day that this episode
Yes.
airs.
So part 1 was last night.
Yes.
Part 2 if it's a 3-part Bravo reunion, sometimes they're 2 parts. It's the first ever 3-part Summer House. So sometimes they make part 2 a little bit less stacked with stuff because they know that part 1 is big and part 3 is like out with a bang.
The finale.
So I could see part 2 being a little bit less intense than this first part.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this weird thing where all this is blown up after the season has finished filming. It's obviously still airing. And so it's the thing that's kind of a shadow over everything. And so they're trying to like address other things that happened in the season, but it's kind of like we're really here to talk about this whole scandal. And I hope that they kind of like don't beat around the bush and just kind of get to what we all want.
Yeah.
Which Andy's been doing a really great job of so far. So I expect we'll get more answers. I don't know if I believe all the answers we're getting, but you know.
You think strings are being pulled behind
I
the
think
scenes?
I think Wes and Amanda got on the same page or tried to ahead of this to make themselves look as best as possible. And I don't think that a lot of people are buying what they're selling necessarily.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm very curious because you had mentioned off air that you went to a live theater showing.
Yeah, so Bravo linked up with AMC Theaters,
Okay.
19th Street and Broadway, and 3 full screens. They sold tickets for fans to watch part 1 of the Summer House reunion live.
Wow.
It was actually early. It was at 7 p.m. and it aired at 8 p.m. And it was just like, you know, a couple hundred fans in these theaters booing and cheering and responding to this highly anticipated event together. You got free drinks, or I guess a drink was with your ticket. But like it really reminds you that like people do yearn to watch these shows together, and we watch them so separately most of the time. Like I'm alone watching these shows in my apartment every single week, and to watch it with people and to have your sort of like your feelings confirmed and, you know, validated by everyone around you and to kind of bond over the shared language. It's always fun to be in a room with a bunch of Bravo fans. Always.
I mean, in that sense, what we were also talking about off pod, I believe, was that it's kind of like sports.
Yes.
To some level.
Yes,
you know, you have the side talk interviews outside of the Summer House reunion, tailgates. I imagine people jumping on tables. But no, it is interesting. It's like, you know, Bravo seems like one of the last vestiges, a reality TV of kind of like a monoculture to some extent.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
It's like culture is so fragmented that people do yearn for that unified experience. And like, you know, I'm on threads after every single episode or during every episode commenting with people. And I think that Bravo has done, it's such an outlier in that world in terms of like, it's literally a cable channel that still has a brand that's really distinct and really defined and has been working for over 20 years. Like I guess ESPN is probably the only other cable brand like that, honestly.
Yeah.
And like, it's so impressive to me. And they're adapting pretty damn well to the changing times, I think. And it's really impressive.
And they've done it without a gambling sponsor, which is
Well,
quite
not
impressive.
yet, but
that is kind of what is keeping almost every cable channel afloat, more or less. But anyway, go on.
Well, no, I mean, I expect we'll be getting into a lot of this as we talk more about just like the Bravo fandom and like the Bravo universe, because I agree. I think that it's sort of both like a very specific, and I think a lot of people sort of wish they could bottle the lightning and apply it to their own brand, media network, etc. But I wanted to start by asking a little bit about your Bravo background because you host a podcast, Gabbing with Gib.
Yes.
So I'm curious, like, A, what was your sort of like entree into the Bravo universe? You know, Gallery Girls, a Real Housewives franchise.
You know your
like,
stuff.
what was the exactly? What was the sort of like original sort of like thing that drew you in? And then, yeah, I guess we'll sort of just like go from there.
Yeah. Well, the TV was always on in my house growing up at all times. That's just how we were as a family. And I have an older brother. Very fortunate that he and I share a lot of the same tastes. Or I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, but like he exposed me to so many things growing up. And one of those things happened to eventually be Bravo, where it was Project Runway and Queer Eye for the Straight Guy was on. My mom loved that show. Top Chef eventually, Rachel Zoe Project, Gallery Girls, NYC Prep, all the shows of sort of that first early era of, I think, of what Bravo as we know it is now. And then because of that, we were already watching when Housewives came out. OC was not the franchise that we really latched onto. It was New York and Atlanta and New Jersey. I remember those being on a lot. And just from there, it was kind of like the rest is history. And like, so it was always something that I kept up with. I think when I was in college, that's when I sort of was the least invested in Housewives. But
we go through seasons of life.
Totally,
you know? It's like,
totally. And then
it can't be all the time.
Obviously, and after college, I sort of like fell into this profession, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that. But like certain forks in the road along the way sort of led me like to being very deep in it.
Yeah.
But that was a conscious thing at certain points to end up here. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting even what you're describing of like those early Bravo shows. And I think it just like tracks the sort of like early process of the internet so clearly. Like even when you think about just like the awareness that people had of like themselves as being sort of like a reality star, like influencers weren't really a thing. Like it wasn't, I think now reality shows, like there's such a clear pipeline to like brand deals and to be doing other things. And I think that like, it's not necessarily, I mean, it's still entertaining. We're still watching it and still talking about it. But I'm curious, like, do you see like any sort of shifts in the arc of sort of your time watching Bravo, covering Bravo, talking about Bravo, like how these shows have sort of evolved with the times kind of?
Definitely. And I think the ones that have evolved the best with the times have embraced that aspect of it in a really smart and almost sort of like, Andy always talks about the Bravo wink. And that's sort of like this distinct like je ne sais quoi that a lot of their shows have. And I think that some of the shows that have embraced being a show about a show or like a show about reality stars, they don't all work. But for example, like the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, I think of that as almost like a postmodern, post-social media show because they're all so aware of the fact they're making a show. And they sometimes allude to that.
Beauty and
totally. It's like, it's all, like that is like Housewives on steroids. And that's why it's so good. But I think that it's sort of like such a great test case in terms of they leaned into some of that stuff and it really worked well. Vanderpump Rules was a show that I think should have leaned into it way earlier because they were all outgrowing this conceit of them being wait staff at a restaurant and they were becoming reality stars and podcasters and getting their brand deals, but they weren't allowed to talk about that on the show. And so it created this friction where us as an audience knew the reality of their lives. They were moving into multi-million-dollar houses, but they were still working for Lisa Vanderpump as a
putting
hostess.
In shifts.
That didn't make any sense to us. And I think that if that show had leaned into that, if they had broken the fourth wall basically earlier in that show's run, we might still have it in its original form, or at least its original cast. And so, yeah, there's definitely been a trajectory of how they've treated this. And I think Bravo, again, has done a pretty great job of like leaning into breaking the fourth wall when it makes sense. But like you can't do that fully because then you can't build it back up at all. And I think that that's something that sort of has differentiated me in this like very crowded Bravo podcast landscape where there are so many amazing shows. One thing that I do when I talk about them is I talk about it as if they are a show. A lot of people take things at very much face value with Bravo shows. Like, why would you ever call that out at a group dinner? Well, it's like, well, you have to open up the drama because we're filming a reality show and that's how this works.
Yeah.
And I think I talk about it in that way and I sort of bring it back to sports. Honestly, it's like, it's a good play. It's a good way to keep your job. It's a good way to, XYZ. And I find that part fascinating, the meta aspect of all of this.
What do they say? What is it? High body count bangs or whatever?
High body count hair.
Yeah, high body count hair.
And
how dare you bring that up at a nice fine china dinner?
How dare you bring that up? But then as you hear that phrase, you're like, okay, you can see it on the merch. You can see it on that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
They
like,
drew up the
Angie K
play.
knows
They
what
drew up the
she's
play
doing.
from
totally.
the
And Angie K is somebody who's so conscious of it, but it was in a way that you almost like wanted to root for her to get the job. She's somebody who literally went from like a guest to a friend to a cast member, and she kind of climbed her way up there in a way that people really admired.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like the fourth walls, like speaking of brands, like the fourth wall breakage when they were at sort of like that cursed house, having like the palm reader or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And then they're like arguing over like the Kerastase deal and like how like Angie K is like yelling at Lisa about the Kerastase deal. Like just like the whole thing, like all of these dimensions of like.
So many dimensions. And one of the best people in my world is this guy, Brian Moylan, who works for Vulture. He always says, he sort of coined the phrase, like every fight on Housewives is about housewives. It's all that ultimately comes back to their jobs and, to varying degrees, but.
Yeah, all unhappy families are unhappy in different ways.
Right. Yes, exactly.
All housewives. But yeah, I mean, I think, and I know Eli, you have some thoughts on this as well, but I think we also wanted to talk about the kind of like personal brand and, actual brands, the Whitney Rose Beauties of the world, and then in a more successful lane, perhaps the Skinnygirl margaritas. But I think sort of from the beginning, Real Housewives in particular has been sort of like an incubator for the housewives and their own sort of like entrepreneurial interests or their sort of like influencer sort of like afterlife degrees. And their influencer afterlives. And I'm curious, like, I guess now as we have sort of like more and more influencers are sort of like trying to like platform switch in the way that I feel like Bethany Frankel or like some of like the OG housewives have kind of been able to do in a very like successful way. Are there any like cues that you think or like things that like Bethany or maybe some other examples, like things that made their business like work or transfer actually? Because I think like it is sort of surprising to me that like Whitney, and I don't know the business management of it all, but like you would think with like all of the excitement around Real Housewives of Salt Lake City that the Whitney Rose Beauty would have like popped off.
Right.
To some extent.
I
but,
think that Bethany was sort of the OG product shiller on Housewives, and she was so relentless about it. And it was kind of like what we were talking about with Angie K. Bethany in season 1 was in a grocery store selling like little muffins or something like that, like with a different brand name. I forget, Bethany Bakes, I think. And then she sort of slowly built up. She became a fan favorite and she leaned into that. She was ordering skinny margaritas at these cast dinners. And so for her, it became this thing where it's like we wanted to root for her. We wanted to invest in her. We wanted to all buy a bottle of Skinnygirl margarita. I was 17 and I wanted to buy one,
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And
sitting on the stoop.
Exactly. Drinking margarita
University of
mix.
Michigan frat. Exactly. No, but she's really the blueprint of all of it. And that's why they've, everyone talks about this Bethany clause they put into contracts at Bravo where she got to sell that brand for $100 million and didn't give any of it to the network, even though she utilized the network to grow it.
Yeah.
And there's that's a whole sort of thing that gets talked
and that's
about.
the Bethany,
famously
like Bravo makes the
yes,
talent
now
sign.
every contract of Bravo talent has this, clause that is essentially saying like if you want to promote your brand or build your brand on the show, we get a cut of it.
Wow.
Or we get a cut of sales. I don't know the exact wording, but that's been reported on a lot. So the reason why she was the first, that's why. And then the other big example that I think about is Paige DeSorbo, who was on Summer House.
Yeah.
Another fan favorite person. Her and her co-star Hannah Berner, they start this podcast called Giggly Squad, which is based off of sort of this like reclaiming of like a joke nickname that Kyle gave them on the show. It becomes this huge thing during the pandemic. They don't talk about the show at all on their podcast, which is a really important thing, I think, because they don't rely on them remaining on the show. They cultivated this incredible community of gigglers who just like are obsessed with them. They'll hear them talk about anything, like the most benign things, but the way they do it feels like they're your best friends. It feels like them on the show, but they're just not talking about the drama of the show. They've done that like probably like 5. Like I don't listen to it all the time, but there have been certain moments where they have to tap in, but that's kind of it. And Paige is one of the very few people because she did the podcast, and then she had all these brand partnerships that happened outside. She linked up with Amazon. She started a brand.
Mm-hmm.
She created an off-ramp for herself from Bravo in a way that everybody is probably very envious of. And I think people think they're doing that in the same way, but they're not. And it's the lack of dependence on the network, I think, is a huge one. And I think just like she always had this intrinsic interest in fashion that we knew was very natural to her.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's one of the other issues that maybe other Bravo stars face is like they try to start these brands, maybe like a skincare brand or an alcohol brand. And it's like, well, like, what does that have anything to do with you? Like, we don't know you as a particular like passionate skincare person, or you're not even known for getting drunk on camera. Like, why? Like, you know what I mean? Like, Paige was known for fashion and for talking in bed, and she created a podcast, did fashion collabs, and created a sleepwear line.
Yeah,
I was gonna say a Casper mattress deal.
You have to play to your lane.
Yeah, it's interesting because now I feel like there's a lot of saturation. You have like Meredith Marks caviar. Mm-hmm. Also, you think Brooks Marks's clothing line is going to be successful? That he famously fired his mother from?
I'm not sure. I don't know what's beyond tracksuits at this point.
Yeah, exactly. You have I feel like dirty soda kind of. Well, I think it was a dirty soda in the very white people sense of like women in Utah drinking soda with milk or whatever it is. Yeah. Kind of had like
soda
a halo.
Is
that not what it is?
Maybe.
Or the creamer?
It's basically like creamy soda, I guess.
They have a lot of dental care over there. But so outside of, I guess, like an authentic connection to this person's interest, what does it take to succeed? Or is that kind of it? As with any brand, it's like it has to be believable that you would actually be doing this and creating this. You know what I mean?
I completely agree. Yeah. And like it also can't be just sort of like the flavor of the month for you. Like some of these people, quote unquote, create a company or a brand one season and you never hear about it ever again. Mm-hmm. And it just feels like they did it for a storyline or something, which I understand I have honestly sympathy for some of these people who have so much pressure to come up with another thing every single season. And it's like, we don't all have something crazy new going on every 8 months, you know? So they kind of I understand some of the fabrication of it, but in terms of you have to invest in it over time. And I just think that it's the harsh reality that not everybody is a fan favorite also. You know, not everybody is the most popular person on a show, and not everybody can probably move product in that same way. That's kind of, I think,
So you think Amanda Francis is preying on the weakest of us with her book and digital courses? Anyone shilling digital courses?
Yeah, I think digital coursing is just like inherently suspect.
Sure.
Like,
If she wants
we don't want to get you in hot water.
We don't want to get you in hot water. Self-proclaimed.
Hey, we'll be rich as fuck. You'll be picking up.
No, exactly.
Our litter.
It has been interesting to watch who succeeds and who doesn't in that realm. And I also think that people underestimate the importance of still having the show as sort of the baseline for your continued success and your continued access to brand deals and things like that. Like, plenty of people think they outgrow the show. They leave because they're getting all these brand deals because they're on the show. They leave, or maybe they get fired. And then all that dries up because you aren't on the show anymore. And it's sort of, that is what keeps you sort of inherently baseline relevant and of interest to people. And I think that people underestimate that. I mean, even the Kardashians went back to a reality show because even them who have hundreds of millions of Instagram followers, and they are our biggest reality stars still, they know that having that baseline of a show to like kind of come back to is really important.
Yeah.
And I think that anybody below that level of fame, like, it's obviously still true for.
Yeah, cloud corn is not flying off the shelves.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It does, like, I think the Bravo-lebrity brand thing, it just circles to me, I think, like, so many of the interesting things about like Bravo in general, which is like both the parasocialness of it all. And I think that, like, to your point about like the Bravo wink, I feel like Bravo does sort of like break the fourth wall in these like really interesting ways of like, even if it's sort of in like the more banal, like whatever, like Lisa commenting on like memes of herself or whatever. And I think it also is kind of this interesting, like, I'm curious how you feel about Amanda well, actually both Amandas, Amanda Francis versus Amanda Batula, because I think like, granted, Amanda Francis is sort of like hasn't cheated or not.
They were being
really
a little
cheat.
cruel
It's
to
kind
her,
of a
to be fair.
tricky thing to
agree.
term. But exactly. But like, I think she sort of like leaned into, or like, to me at least, in this like aftermath, has sort of like leaned into being the heel almost of the show, of being like, you guys want me to come back, right? You know what I mean? Where it's sort of like, but I think also sort of like gaming the system of like building a parasocial like desire that like wasn't even necessarily like bared out on her like driving the plot in the course of the season. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. No, the call for her to come back didn't really exist.
It's coming from inside.
But then because when she says
like,
she's not going to, she wants to leave the show because she was treated terribly, and then Rihanna says, don't quit. You publish the DM from Rihanna, and game over. You're back for another season.
Speaking of Rihanna,
some pond to
probably
replay.
a
I didn't
better
know about that.
Yeah.
Rihanna is always DMing Housewives.
Always, yeah.
Bronwyn.
She has her favorites, and she at least used to follow Amanda Batula. I don't know if she still does.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tea.
Yeah. But I think but Amanda is somebody who, because of her storyline on the show after 10 years, she is the woman coming out of a terrible relationship going into season 10, the current season. She was supposed to have the Ariana Madix treatment. She was supposed to have the Paige Sorbo treatment. You get the Marie Claire cover, and you get all of this really kind of winky, all these winky brand partnerships where they sort of allude to what happened to you on the show.
The infamous Edie Parker.
The Edie Parker. And she threw all of that away. All of it. Because nobody wants to root for her anymore. And but we were all rooting for her. Not to paraphrase an America's Next Top Model quote, but we were all rooting for Amanda Batula up until everything happened. And now that's the part that actually has shocked me almost the most. Obviously the friendship being thrown away, but throwing away all the goodwill and all the opportunity. This is what you've worked for a decade for,
and he's
basically.
Just West. You know,
and he's just West.
Like,
it's so tough. It's like, you know, when your favorite athlete, they're causing locker room drama.
I know, exactly.
Ruining the chemistry of the
go.
team. Then they tear their ACL, and you're like, God damn it.
God damn it. And then
could have been you.
And the person on the other team goes to host the Love Island after show, and that was never going to happen if Amanda and Wes hadn't done this.
It's so crazy.
Betrayal.
But I do think it also sort of like underscores the way that like brands have sort of become integrated into the drama in a way that I think is sort of new. Like whether it's sort of like in the Angie K and Lisa sense of like being called out live on the show, or like the brand deals are sort of part of what they're bickering about or whatever. But then also, in the aftermath of all of these scandals and drama playing out, and like I think there was a Cut article where they were like, and like Chips Ahoy is in the comments being like, we're with you, Sierra, and like that the brands have essentially become like proxies for public opinion. Which I think is also like, I'm curious what your take is on sort of like the Greek chorus of CPG brands that are sort of like part of like the Bravo discourse.
Like, what a funny sentence. I mean, you're right. That's exactly what it is. I think that sometimes it becomes too much. I would say it becomes really heavy-handed, and like kind of feel like right now is definitely a bandwagon moment for Bravo, where it's like everybody wants a piece of the pie, and I totally get it. It seems like everybody online is talking about on certain days, and if it results in like Sierra and Lindsay and Kyle getting another brand deal here or there, that's like a funny little video we can share. Bravo fans will eat it up. But sometimes I will say it reads as inauthentic. Like somebody, I wish I could remember the brand. Some brand was like today on Threads, like, this is for the next 3 weeks, this is going to be a Summer House Stan account. And it's like, well, I don't even know how you connect to this, you know? So it's a it's a fine line, and I think that's probably a really hard one for brands to strike correctly. Because I'm like, what was it? 2 seasons ago when Lindsay and Carl were breaking up, and ahead of the reunion, there was some like Cheez-Its, or there's like a Cheez-Its versus Goldfish situation. I don't even remember what it was, but that played into it. But then there's like the kind of more natural ones that feel more right, where it's like Lindsay gives birth and she does SpawnCon from the hospital bed for a sandwich company. I'm forgetting which one, because she has a really iconic line. That's how many sandwiches have you made for me, to her ex-boyfriend. And it's like, and that's where it comes in. The carrot sauce thing on Salt Lake City is because of a line that Lisa Barlow whispered to one of her castmates in a scene. So that's where it's like, I think the best, if you get naturally brought up, or you can Lindsay didn't mention a brand of sandwiches, but a sandwich brand slid into her, and the rest is history. So that's where I think are the more intelligent, kind of more knowing ways of inserting yourself as a brand versus like, okay, what do like vitamin gummies have anything to do with what we're talking about?
They said,
about?
What kind of bread would you like? 5 figures, 6 figures? I'm curious, kind of stepping outside of the brand ecosystem for a second. It also feels like we're at this moment we're a media environment where like people can get potentially the same fix from reality TV by like following narrative plot lines of strangers on TikTok and YouTube or Reels or what have you. And it's interesting to think about Bravo being kind of like one of the final vestiges of cable and monoculture. But what do you think of its longevity when people are turning to more like YouTube or social media based plot lines potentially?
2 things come to mind. One is that one of the things that makes Bravo is the editing and the packaging of everything. Like, for example, this Summer House reunion, there were those leaks that happened. There was like, unedited audio that somebody on production leaked on social media, which has really never happened before. And that sort of caused this ripple effect of, oh my God, like they should release all 10 hours of the reunion day unedited for us. And it's like, that actually wouldn't be as compelling as you think it would be.
Yeah.
Because part of it is the way that, Mia says, it'd be stupid to go from one relationship to another. And then they cut to Wes and Amanda reacting to that. Like part of it is the editing and the reaction shots and what they pick up on to sort of create that Bravo wink effect. And I think on social media, I'm sure there are people that do amazing editing, but it's not sort of that signature feel. And I think it also loops back to the communal experience. Like, you might be following some random story on somebody's TikTok that's a 65-part, whatever it is, micro drama, whatever we're talking about these days. But like, you might be the only person in your life that's watching that.
Yeah.
Because somebody else, your other friend is watching a 48-part one on this side of the internet.
Yeah.
Like, because we all have our random, content creators and influencers and brands that we like to follow just because we're personally fans with them, but that kind of quietly happens within your phone. You don't really talk about it with other people unless you get you sort of convince them to. I think that Bravo, because it is such a unifying brand, I think the longevity's there. Like they're still breaking ratings records. I think in the past couple years, they were in this transitional moment where, do we care about live ratings anymore? Do we really care more about Peacock streaming? Now they clearly care way more about Peacock streaming numbers, and those are huge. And I don't think that's going anywhere. Reality TV is the cheapest form of content for these companies to make still. When they're paying, hundreds of million dollars for sports rights, or billions of dollars. And so this is what keeps people in the door and keeps people subscribing. And so I don't think that these companies want to give up on any of that. And there's also a reason why you see brands like Hulu and Netflix trying to like get in on the sort of creating a reality universe game to varying degrees of success, I would say. But they're doing it.
Yeah.
Because they see value in it.
I'm curious. There was an article in Puck not too long ago,
I love Puck.
So good. And they were talking about basically just comparing the ratings and sort of like the spikes and sort of like levelness of Summer House, which is sort of like enjoyed this like very sort of steady growth. And then Secret Life of Mormon Wives, which kind of has these sort of like sharp peaks of like being super viral and everyone's talking about it, and then like completely quiet. And I'm curious, like you sort of alluded to it with like Hulu, Netflix, like do you think that it is sort of partly the format? Because I think Julia Alexander was essentially saying like the thing that Bravo has done, which is really smart, is to keep the weekly cadence essentially, rather than letting people binge these seasons, that you basically like slowly build. You're essentially like, creating a moment, like you're giving enough space, I guess, for there to be a moment.
I feel so strongly about this. I think that Hulu struck gold with The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. That is like, to me, one of the most promising non-Bravo reality franchises to exist in the past decade in terms of just like vested interest on like immediate interest on from an audience. But they drop 10 episodes at once over a weekend where you're either binging it as quickly as possible to get all the information as possible, and then you're ahead of everybody else. who's slower. So then they're trying to play catch up.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about it for a week and then nobody's talking about it again until the next season 6 months later. I think they have, and I just think they've sort of mishandled the rollout of this show. And they have not stopped filming up until earlier this year when they stopped filming up during that big scandal with Taylor Frankie Paul. They basically haven't stopped filming for like 3 years of that show. And it's, to me, what has happened with them is actually a reflection of how they've handled that production, which is like burning way too fast and bright.
Mm-hmm.
They're not letting them or giving them any air to breathe.
Yeah.
They're not part of what makes a Bravo show also good is that people get some time to live their lives between seasons.
And for drama to fester.
Exactly. And like these women will always have drama, but it's sort of building on itself in a way that's felt really unsustainable to me. And then it all came crashing down. And I was a huge advocate of like put the first 3 episodes out and then go weekly for the next 2 months. Like why not? Why not sustain that interest? There's enough drama in each episode to still, cultivate conversation. Netflix has done a pretty good job with Love is Blind, where they will do like 2 to 5 episodes at a time. Those are longer seasons. But that keeps Love is Blind, I feel like I talk about for a month at a time when those episodes are dropping. But yeah, I think the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives things I don't understand, because I think that the weekly drop it's becoming more and more apparent that is the way to go to carve out your little piece of the online conversation.
Well, I think not to bring everything back to brands all the time, but I do think that it does sort of connect into what I think brands often do struggle with, which is sort of especially if you have whatever, a big campaign, a product, something that's happening. And I think there is sort of this incentive of go, go, go,
Yeah.
where it's sort of fire on all cylinders, tease the talent, show
Over the top,
talent.
lads.
Right.
Exactly. Push the creator content. And I do think that what Bravo, and I think I do sort of attribute it maybe to just they've now seen through so many different seasons, but letting momentum actually build, giving people just enough so that they are curious and want to have a conversation, but not so much that they're hugely overwhelmed. And also, that's on a campaign level, but I think also when you think about more always on social, and we've spoken with Adam Faze, who I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but he does a lot of social shows. He did Boy Room and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he was sort of talking a bit about how long do you give a show until you're okay, this isn't going to work, essentially. And I think it's so interesting with Summer House in particular, because I think people who are less familiar with Bravo might not be aware, but Summer House has been on for 10 seasons now. So it's it's not it came out of the box this overnight juggernaut success, No. And I think it has sort of enjoyed a much more I don't know, drip drop and then skyrocket.
Yeah. I think that Summer House has had a different trajectory than any other Bravo show because of that. Its first 2 seasons are not very good. And they had not figured out the cast. Season 3 is when Paige Sorbo and Hannah Bernard joined the show. And that's when they started to figure it out. And that's when it brought a little bit more interest into it. But it has built every single season. The pandemic was big because people started to they were looking for things to catch up on. And that was a show that a lot of people did not watch at the time. And then the pandemic season was really good of that show. So that sort of wasn't a nice sort of kismet moment for them. But I always say a Bravo show needs sometimes 3 to 4 seasons to really get really good.
Yeah.
Salt Lake City and Rhode Island are 2 shows that have come out of the box swinging, and that's really rare. Southern Hospitality is another Bravo show that's sort of building momentum. It got really good in season 3. It's this weird thing where in culture we want everything so immediately, and we want things to be so good so fast. But there's a long game to be played, I think. I think Summer House is the perfect example of it paying off.
Real quick, Clara, before I'm sure you have some really incisive analysis, was Erica Kirk on a season of Summer House before?
She dated Carl or something for one episode.
Okay.
Yeah, that was I think when people were binging the show this year because of the scandal, they were sort of uncovering that.
Not the crossover you expected.
Certainly not. No.
Wow.
Yeah, certainly not.
I saw that on Twitter.
Yeah.
Or on X, the Everything app, rather.
Oh my God. Not X, the Everything
Not the
app.
Everything app.
Oh my God.
Yeah, quite literally.
But no, I guess I'm curious on that point, because there have been, there's been the Ladies of London reboot.
Yeah.
There's been the Real Housewives of Rhode Island. And I do think you're right that there's a lot of opportunism around Summer House in particular right now. But I think and I don't know, I'm not in charge of brands Bravo strategies. I wish I was, but if there was sort of like would you recommend, is it like you sort of you pick your franchise and you sort of stick with it? Do you know what I mean? Like versus
As a
sort of
viewer?
like I guess as a brand, like if you're, I don't know,
I
I'm
see.
trying to think of a brand that we don't work with and like Cheez-Its or something. Like if you're Cheez-Its, like do you sort of like try to hitch your wagon to like Real Housewives of Rhode Island, like at this point, you know, like be like a from the bottom type of, you know, we've been here since the early days.
That's a really
type of
interesting
thing,
question.
like-
And you think about Rhode Island, there's somebody on that show who one of her like signature things, you know, through the 9 episodes we've seen, is that she loves crackers. She's obsessed with crackers, and she always has crackers in her purse. And I'm literally thinking, what's going to be the first cracker brand that's going to get this Alicia woman a brand deal? And she never specifies a brand.
Wow,
So there's
free
opportunity
idea.
there.
Free
I'm just
idea.
saying. I don't know if it's going to be cheese. I don't think they're usually cheese crackers. I think it's more of like a saltine variety. But
got to keep a base layer for the drinking.
But that's what I was talking about with Lindsay's sandwiches. It's like that was not brand specific, but there was like a specific thing that people associate with some personalities. And yeah, I think that's a hard one.
Yeah.
Because you risk being oversaturated if you try to spread the wealth too much around the different shows. And I think you also risk like viewers and fans sort of being suspicious of like why all of a sudden is X thing everywhere.
Yeah.
A smart thing that Bravo has done, they'll do these like, you know, quick social media spots that also sometimes air on TV of like, they'll bring a housewife and a summer house person and a Vanderpump Rules person all together for a brand thing. Or a lot of time they'll do stuff with like Universal for movies, which is obviously
or like
in-house.
Wayfair, weren't they doing
Yeah,
stuff
Wayfair.
with Wayfair?
That was like so heavy-handed
so
with Heather Gay on
nuts,
last season.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Yeah,
So literally
exactly.
Heather's entire personal storyline last season was built redoing her office presented by Wayfair.
Yeah,
basically.
and her like
it was
dusty
like, what
bed.
the hell am I watching?
And it was like painting her like
Yeah,
walls.
that was
like
I did not like how that was done, for the record. And the other thing that the one that actually has been pretty good on Summer House is they bring they've been known to have boxes and packages and groceries and things stacked up on their front porch when they arrive every Friday.
Wow.
And now it's Uber Eats bags for all their groceries every single weekend, which to me is a believable thing. People order from Uber Eats in our generation all the time. I think they've had Amazon sort of plugged in there as well with the packages. That was sitting right there. You know? That's really what I think the bigger opportunities were to actually stick and like also just be like a seamless fit. But I don't think it has to be one franchise necessarily, but if you're everywhere, I think you risk backfiring.
If you could be Liquid IV. That's a layup.
Yeah.
Liquid IV, have you guys watched Off Campus on Amazon Prime?
No, I have not.
It's funny that you bring that up because Liquid IV SpawnCon or the product placement in that show for Liquid IV is like everywhere. It's a hockey show and they're like on all the hockey rink sides and there's commercials, every commercial break for it, and they're like, it's everywhere.
That's so fascinating.
To a point that sort of skates the line, but I think it's honestly it's almost gone viral for that reason. You know?
Exactly. Having like absolutely no, like just pure abandon when it comes to product placement. Yeah. I mean, I think it also sort of speaks to the way that people consume these shows now. Like to your point, like if you actually sit there and you watch like a full episode or like a full season, it's like, oh, these people always have packages. But like if you're sort of like whatever in the position of like sitting in a conference room being like, what's trending, and you're not really actually engaging with the thing itself, it's like those opportunities might not be obvious to you.
Totally. Yeah. I think, and I also think the viewer is way more savvy than they were before. Like the media literacy has both never been higher and lower, I feel like.
Yeah.
People they're trying to pay attention to those things. Because everybody's also sort of conspiracy minded and stuff like that, you know?
Well, you saw like the whole feed is fake thing and like all the ways
that was a great article.
Yeah.
So that's only going to increase. So I think people are like more skeptical than ever, but they also kind of want to try to unlock some of these things too. Yeah. It's a weird world.
With LifeLock.
Exactly.
Another free idea here.
There
we'll
we
be
go.
here all day.
Well, I guess as we sort of begin to wind to a close, I have two sort of wrapping up questions.
Okay.
But I feel like we were kind of talking about it a little bit, but there's like Southern Hospitality, Next Gen NYC, which we have yet to touch on, which Eli's a huge fan.
For the next pod.
love it.
Is Charlie
Next
going to
pod.
jail? Who knows?
Oh.
Oh
don't
my
know.
God. But like, I'm curious for you. Obviously, Summer House is having a big moment, but like, are there franchises that you're feeling like bearish, bullish on the sort of outlook the next year, like couple of years? Like, I know you were talking recently about Real Housewives of Beverly Hills sort of like being in the midst of a semi like identity crisis, casting
Yeah.
crisis. Like, where do you think people's eyeballs are going to be in the next few years?
Yeah, it's really interesting because also I exist so much online for these shows, or I'm so in
Yeah.
tune with that conversation. And Beverly Hills is such a interesting example because it's the highest rated show on Bravo, but it's probably the show that gets most negatively talked about online.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's such a weird friction there that I have not figured out, honestly, as somebody who analyzes all of this stuff. I think Next Gen NYC is going to have a really good second season. It's like the cast is so green.
Mm-hmm.
And the trailer for the show indicates that they're going to lean into what we were talking about at the beginning of our conversation, which is going to be they're talking about fame, they're talking about social media, they're talking about the show and how it changes people. And that is exactly what Vanderpump Rules should have done.
Yeah.
Again, at season 8. And so I think that that's really smart of Bravo. And I think Next Gen NYC was a huge sort of test case for them. Can we do a show about like Housewives' offspring and their social circle, and it's worked. I did not expect to like the show at all, personally.
I was very skeptical.
Me too,
going in.
and I was so pleasantly surprised, and I'm so eagerly looking forward to the second season, especially if they're leaning in this way.
Maybe she'll wash her hands this season.
maybe Georgia will wash her hands. Well, she is starting a apparently like a clean hygiene product.
I guess the bowling alley club did not work out.
Speaking of brands, yeah. The bowling alley nightclub did not work out. So I definitely have my eye on that show. I think Southern Hospitality, I don't know how well it does in the ratings, but it definitely generates a lot of excitement online. Salt Lake City, I think, is sort of the preeminent Housewives franchise right now, just because of it feels new and it's the one that I feel like everybody talks about the most when it's airing. It's sort of the water cooler franchise. And then it's honestly Summer House.
Yeah.
And in the city, which is where like it's going to be their landing place once they outgrow that show. This was just when you think about like this moment for Summer House, it's really honestly crazy because it's the 10th season. It's the central couple that has built the show, breaking up in the finale of the 10th season, leading into the spinoff. Like the timing of it is just so weirdly like poetic in a way. Like I don't know how it worked out this way, but it has just created this insane moment that I think that, Bravo had a similar moment with Vanderpump Rules 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and the show couldn't survive it. They did one more season and it didn't work. The cast was too fractured. I think that maybe the network and certain other people leaned in too hard to that in a way.
Yeah.
And I've noticed the network handling some of these different moments slightly differently for Summer House because of that, I think. And so I think they learned their lesson with Vanderpump Rules and Scandal, and they want the Summer House brand to not only to survive, but also to expand and like have a lifeline beyond the original show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were going to reportedly expand it. They were going to franchise Summer House to Summer House Ozark, apparently. That's what the reports, that Wes was supposed to lead that. That's apparently, according to reports, no longer happening. But they had these big plans for the Summer House brand, and it's about capitalizing on this scandal in the right way. And, you milk it, but if you milk it too hard, then it runs dry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they're handling it really well. So I expect the Summer House frenzy to continue because they film in the Hamptons among people their age who all have social media and stuff. The show's never been bigger. During filming, it's still going to be big before it even airs next year. That's what I expect for that show. So Summer House, I think that is it's the one, and I think it's going to continue to be the one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, and maybe Summer House is your recommendation here.
Okay.
I'm curious if there is any Bravo skeptic that has made it all the way to the end. Is there a single season of any Bravo show that you're like, this is what will convince you that this is sort of like high art, whatever you want to call it. Like,
Oh, there's so many ways to
or
to
you
go
can
about that.
give multiple answers.
Well,
too.
the hard thing about recommending
Multiple
Bravo
choice.
at this point is that there are so many seasons for the watch of certain shows. And so like usually my recommendation is Salt Lake City because it's only been 6 seasons only. Again, it's so
flies.
high octane,
Yeah.
you know, it's like so like this is what it's become. So I usually recommend that, to be honest. Early Vanderpump Rules is some of the best reality TV you'll ever see. It's just that is talk about just finding a group of people that were made to do that and had so much messy overlap. Fantastic television. If you want to watch Summer House and you're a little nervous about how long it's been, you can start with, I always say season 3. I guess you could start with season 5. But you really do want some of the backstory to understand like why this is such a big deal. That's the hard part. And then
the lore,
the lore,
lore,
baby.
yeah.
And then my favorite early Housewives in terms of early seasons, New York and Atlanta. That's pure comedy. And that's the other thing about Bravo. They know how to make you laugh. Like regardless of what's going on, they know that comedy is a huge element of why these shows work. And they have not lost that. And they keep that in mind. So
I know. I'm always finding myself singing "Don't Be Tardy for the Party."
there we go. There we go. You get it.
Personally.
The original Housewives tune.
I know. I mean, there are some real bangers, honestly.
Beyond. On repeat.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you
was
for having me.
very
This was
fun.
so fun.
I'm so glad. Where can our listeners find you, hear more of your Bravo takes?
Yes. My podcast is called Gabbing with Gib. A couple episodes a week. Usually talking about most of the shows. It's a large diet right now, so it's hard to keep up with everything. But it's either me analyzing everything, or sometimes I'll have them on for interviews as well. So Gabbing with Gib, wherever you get the show.
Tune in.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.